Mr Mayor, have you spoken to the supermarket industry about Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab's suggestion that the stockpiling of food in a no-deal scenario would be their responsibility?
Well, the Deputy Mayor for Fire Resilience is chairing the London Resilience Forum work, and they're speaking to a whole host of people. But I challenge anybody who voted to leave the European Union, were they told that us leaving the European Union on the terms the government's negotiating would lead to you having to stockpile medicines, foods, and the possibility of civil unrest. And also, when you listen to retailers and those who understand the business, they say it's ridiculous, the idea of stockpiling fresh produce and other issues as well. And so the worry is that those in charge of our negotiations appear not to know what they're talking about.
Well, thank you for that. Are you aware that the Food and Drink Federation have said, quote, if there were to be no deal, there will be many, many months of disruption. Imports from the EU provide 31% of the country's food, and more than 50,000 tonnes of food passes through British ports from the EU every single day. And the British Retail Consortium say that, quote, stockpiling of food is not a practical response to the no deal on Brexit. Retailers do not have the facilities to house stockpile goods, and in the case of fresh produce, it's simply not possible to do so. Our food supply chains are extremely fragile. And according to the Food Storage and Distribution Federation, if there were big border hold-ups, after 3 days there would be gaps on the shelves in fairly short order. And of the 385 refrigerated warehouses capacity around the country, more than 90% is in constant use and margins therefore extremely tight. What contingency planning for resilience of food stocks do you think is needed? So,
thank you for reminding us what the experts are saying. I know some government don't like listening to experts. I do. One of the pieces of work that the Deputy Mayor of Fire Resilience is doing is looking at what the needs of London are in relation to medicine and other essential issues as well. You'll be aware of the amount of food that comes into our country from Felixstowe. And so if it is the case that there are border checks, border controls, roadblocks on the other side of the channel, could lead to all sorts of problems on this side of the channel with our trucks going to the other side of the channel, particularly fresh produce as well. You'll also have seen, by the way, some examples in the media of farmers not growing certain crops for next year because they're worried whether they'll have sufficient staff to pick the crops next year. It'll just be wasted. And so we're really seeing some of the consequences of the government's shambolic handling of negotiations with the European Union. Again, most people who voted to leave the European Union didn't expect the government to be so incompetent when it comes to negotiating with the European Union.
And are you aware at the Police and Crime Committee last week, we heard from the Commissioner that the Met are planning for potential public disorder due to crashing out of the EU, including possible riots over food shortages. Isn't this a very serious situation when we have the Met planning for public disorder because of the risk of a shortage of food, something this country hasn't seen since rationing in the World War's unrestricted submarine warfare?
Well, I think there are two big concerns raised by the police in relation to the bad deal being negotiated by the government or no deal. One is the cooperation we have with our partners in Europe. You'll be aware from when you're a parliamentarian, the close deal we have with our European friends with the European arrest warrant, with the access to data, issues in relation to people wanted by our colleagues in Europe, our ability to bring people back from Europe who are wanted here. You'll recall in 2005 that the man alleged to have committed the second attack in July, fled our country, went to Europe and was extradited back very speedily. So there's that level of disruption caused by us leaving the European Union without bilateral agreement or something sufficient in place, which the police are really worried about. The second issue is the civil unrest. They've got a plan for it. You can imagine the very people today who are laughing would be criticising the police for lack of planning in relation to any civil unrest. And so the police are being prudent and planning for the possibility of civil unrest. You just imagine if big parts of the motorway near Dover or Folkestone are car parks because of the backlog caused by the borders, what could happen over the course of a number of hours or days without basic toilet facilities and other issues as well. So it's right and proper for the councils there to be planning, for the police to be properly planning. And what I'm hoping is the government realise that there is a consequence of a bad deal with the European Union or no deal.
Assembly Member O'Connell.
I think it's fair to